Trill Burgers has been going crazy. You had Drake try the burger. You had Tyler, the Creator. You had DJ
Travis
Khaled.
Scott, yeah.
Travis Scott. You guys went to SpaceX.
How the heck do you make that happen? I'm like, how do I separate myself from anyone else from being able to compete? Do you have the know-how to execute and do it right? Everyone was shutting the door on me. No. But every year I kept collecting more contacts. Next thing you know, everyone's saying yes to me, and now I have way more than I could even handle. Hello Kitty collab, Rick and Morty, The Fast and the Furious. I'm just like everyone else. I came from not much, right? I didn't have much when I was a kid. I got kicked out for the worst grades possible in high school. Office administrator, I was like, what? The food side took off immediately because I was applying this whole streetwear culture that I was in for the past 7 years, and I was the first person to apply it to food. Hip hop culture, club culture. I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like my best work is still ahead of me right now.
I'm freaking ready, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
3, 2, 1. Boom.
Wow. Faraz, are you ready for today's guest?
Hell yeah, I am, baby. Let's do this.
So today's guest is the rock star of the food industry. He brought to life more than 20 concepts in 60 plus locations. Nguyen Arrow, Bored and Hungry, Trill Burgers, After's Ice Cream, just to name a few. He brings the most famous household names into food. Rick and Morty, SpongeBob, Hello Kitty. That's why the Food Network calls him the Mashup King. His Trill Burger with Bambi won Good Morning America's Best Burger Award. Everyone, this is Andy.
Andy, what's up, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
I'm going to give a warning before we even start all of this. If you're hungry, do not go and follow Andy. Do not do it. You will lose your mind and sanity. This guy has the best Instagram when it comes to food porn. Like, literally every single thing. And we're not talking about like just one thing. He's got the burger, he's got the ice cream, he's got the cookies, he's got everything on his Instagram. So just be careful. But Andy, before we get started, how are you doing? How's your vibe today, man?
I'm good. I even with all the food, I started training for the marathon. So I've been running and trying to get this work this weight off. So I just ran 10 miles yesterday. So my body's recovering right now.
Oh, damn, dude, that's really it must be so difficult because you're always exposed to so much tasty food and having to live a healthy lifestyle at the same time. I can't imagine, because for us, we just try to avoid it, right? We're like, we're gonna make sure nothing in the fridge is tempting enough for us to keep going back to it. For you, you're looking at food that is mouth-watering every single moment of every day. How can you even stay away and like sometimes even keep a diet or avoid all of that? It must be so hard.
It's tough, but I think I've gotten to the point where I've tried nearly almost everything I wanted to try. So now I'm like, okay, I gotta change my lifestyle around. I'm approaching 40. This is getting too tough on my body, and I need to find a different kind of balance.
Well, you don't look 40, man, because I think the level of happiness you have from like the things that you do, because clearly you're doing what you love, and we're gonna talk about that. But first things first, I want to say yesterday, me and Farhad were thinking of you like for almost 2-3 hours straight, not because of the podcast, but because we went to this donut place here in Vancouver, and it's apparently supposed to be amazing because there's this
Long
giant
queue, like an hour queue all the time.
There you go. And we were super excited to try it out. We missed out on it a couple of times. Yesterday the queue was a little shorter, so we were like, okay, let's get in there. And dude, we got 6 donuts. They were the most horrible donuts you've ever tried. No fillings, no flavor. There were 6 different flavors, but they all tasted the same. It was
Same.
And we were like, Andy, please come to Vancouver. Please do something. Like, I would definitely sure that he would do an amazing job with this.
it's crazy. Please come and save Vancouver, man. We need you here.
I love it. I love it up there. I can't wait to come back up there to check it out. So yeah.
It's the reason we also said this is, again, we recommend you guys now, I'm telling you, please go and check Andy's Instagram page, because you get to see all the different concepts he's done. He's just a genius when it comes to presenting food and also coming up with the ideas of food, like the dreams you might have of the kind of food you want to eat. Like when I guess when people get high, right? That's like exactly what you would want to have. You're like, what if I put the cookie and then put some ice cream on top and then add like Smarties or all over it, and all the things you would do if you're high. This is like the kind of food that Andy can give you at all of his places. And so I guess what I want to say is, before we even get to the real shit, Trill Burgers has been going crazy. This is one of the things you work on with Bun B, and we see all over Instagram. You had Drake try the burger, you had Tyler the Creator, you had DJ
Travis
Khaled,
Scott, yeah.
Travis Scott. You guys went to SpaceX. How do you guys get to this level of success with burgers? Because so many people have done burgers in the past, but you guys have clearly done it different. What's happening with Trill Burgers right now?
This is a great topic because I just had a conversation with the team about this, and I told them, I'm like, hey guys, this Trill Burgers concept was not an overnight concept, right? Because every single partner involved has had so much life experience prior. Like this is my fourth burger concept. Literally it took me 4 tries. My partner Chef Mike, he's been having burger restaurants since 2012. You know, Bun B has been he's been a fan of the food scene for a long time now. So, you know, and he's built his reputation. But I think it's a culmination of everything we've done as a team, and that's why it's led to where it has today. Like it took all of our previous work, all our mistakes to get to this one project, and even this one project we're at 2-year mark now. Like at 1 year, the first year we're going through a lot of headaches and a lot of issues and a lot of problems, but the second year things just like hockey stick and took off.
That's first of all, that's crazy because it doesn't look like it's a second year in all of this, because you guys are clearly, it looks like it's something that's been around for years. Would you say this, it like you mentioned, it owes to the fact that all of you guys have done this in the past and you've learned from all these failures, probably failures or challenges that you might have had to overcome, and you're taking all of that experience now, and that's why this is a success? Because some people might think it's an overnight success, or it's just like the first time you guys are doing it and it's just working out.
Of course, everyone thinks like, hey, Andy's working with Bun B as a rapper. He's automatically going to have everyone eat it. But if it doesn't taste good or the process doesn't go right, like they're not going to co-sign it. Like it doesn't make sense. And even for me, like I can't put my name on just a concept, a novelty concept anymore. Everyone expects something higher of me every single time.
When the other burger concepts that you personally did, that you said you did 3 or 4 before this, did they fail at some point that like you had to like stop them, or no, they're still continuing? This just happens to be the most successful. How did that go about?
The very first one I did, I believe was still operating up until late last year. But I left very early on. I think the issue between the concepts then and now is that I didn't have a lot of control then. You know, I was coming onto a concept that was already existing, that was coming off a TV show. I was helping these guys open a store. I never really had enough control of the menu. And I think along the way, I've gotten better and I understood more of the direction I wanted to take the brand.
Mm-hmm. I asked that question because so this is probably like the second time we're going at it for YouTube. I've done YouTube once in the past and I failed. And so everything that I didn't do right the last time, we're trying to fix this time. And so I always think that that's the right way to approach things. There's multiple attempts that you might have at one thing and it might fail and fail and fail. But if you really want it bad enough, you can always go back to it and figure it out. And that's clearly what's happening with us here on YouTube. And I guess the same thing for you with burgers specifically, because you guys are killing it right now. And it's an amazing thing to watch.
Thank you.
And Andy, one thing I think you have done really well in the past and also with Trill Burgers is partnership. But what is your mindset when you go through selecting a partner, or how do you know like, oh, this is going to be a good partnership, or from the mistakes that you have made, or you know, the partnership that have failed, you know that, okay, I need to be careful when I choose a partner this time?
Of course, I'm always, you know, I think these days the most important thing for me is having an open-minded partnership. Right, I think it's clear. It has to be clear transparency. I think a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is for communication within partners. Right? And you're literally getting into a marriage with each other, and you need to be able to communicate. And a lot of times, I think I've seen it over again. The ones that don't communicate well or don't know how to compromise with each other, it just doesn't work out. And I think the great thing with Bun B is when we enter the space, I knew me and him had a lot of similarities. Right, we enjoy a lot of the same things. We enjoy music, we enjoy fashion, we enjoy art, food, a lot of the same topics, sports. Like we're definitely in the same realm together. So I knew partnering Bun, he would be very open minded in terms of like direction, how we build the brand. He always says to me, when it comes to the food side, I defer to you, Andy. And I go, okay, when it comes to the hip hop side, I defer to you, Button. So we always make sure, like, hey, we're gonna help each other, but we're also gonna stay in our own lane and, you know, focus on what we do best.
It's beautiful what you just brought up, the concept of marrying each other. So clearly you have a lot of marriages, successful ones, and you made them work. So I want to know, out of all the things that we see work out really well, were there any ones that didn't as well? And again, those were the reasons why you are so good at them now?
Yeah, I've had a lot of, you know, failed marriages and partnerships, different partnerships over the years, and I've learned a lot from it. And I think over time, you know, people have been able to see right through it, right? Whether it does work out or not, I'm still here. It's 9 years later in the food industry, and I'm still around. You know, I'm approaching my 10th year in the game, and I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like, you know, I feel like my best work is still ahead of me right now, and it's super difficult. And the food is not an easy game to be in. It is a very, very tough industry, and a lot of people get to see a lot of my highlight reels, but I also share a lot of my failures. I'm like, hey guys, I did this concept. I jumped into bed with the wrong people. This concept didn't work because I didn't have a say in it. I let everyone just kind of voice their own opinion, and I forgot the direction, and, you know, things fell apart. And I think a lot of the reason why people continue to follow my brand is because I'm sharing everything. I'm putting it out there, guys. If it works, it's working out because of this. It's not working out because of this.
There's one thing I want to talk about and continue on this concept of partnership, because what's really important, and I think a lot of people might fail to understand this, myself included, is we always want to hoard things. We always want everything for ourselves. And when you have that mindset of 100% for me, it's hard to have a partnership because you always want to keep everything for yourself and you want to make things work. But we live in a world where having people at your side is one of the strongest things you can have. Yes, you can win solo, but winning with a team is always going to get you further. But of course, finding the right partnerships is difficult. And like you mentioned, one of the keys to having a good partnership is transparency and communication. But I want to talk about your mindset of how you get into these partnerships, because correct me if I'm wrong, the different concepts that you have. And first of all, not everybody can even pull that off. Like, people get into F&B and they just have one restaurant, like one concept. You jump from different concepts and you make sure each of them, at least the ones that are here now, are successful and they're running and they're improving. They're not even stagnant. They're just getting better and better. So how do you get into these partnerships? Are you willing to just be like, you know what, I don't need to have the mindset of I need 100% of this business and this business. I don't want everything for myself. I'm willing to open up, share percentages, or maybe share. I don't know how you do the work. Actually, that's what I'm curious about. I'm willing to open up just so I can do more concepts. I feel like that's the approach you have, just looking from the outside. Am I right about that?
Yeah, partially. I think for myself is I always want to have someone to lean on, right? I want to team up with people who are experts in their own field, because I'm not an expert. I know I'm not an expert at everything. I don't film content of me cooking just because I don't know how to cook, right? I'm not the chef, and I told you, I was like, hey, I'm not the cook. If I had to focus and learn how to cook, I think I could be okay, but I just know that's like not what I enjoy doing the most. I was like, I figured out over time what I enjoy doing. I was like, I enjoy branding, marketing, ideation, how to scale. But when it comes to like kitchen and operations and being there every day, I'm like, my attention span doesn't work that way. So I was like, you know what? I am definitely willing to share the percentage for someone to be there every single day to make sure this place is running well, and I'll do the rest. I'll get people through. My job is to get people through the door, and you just you guys focus on keeping people there. Yep.
Wow,
that's amazing. But how much time? So when, of course, every business or every concept that you start goes through challenges, right?
Yep.
When do you know it's time to unplug, or when do you know it's time to pull off? Like, this doesn't work. We shouldn't give it any other chance. Or like, how many chances you should give to a concept for it to work? Because a lot of businesses, a lot of startups fail. Yeah. Maybe they
hold on too long,
or they hold on too long.
Yeah, you start bleeding. You start seeing the bleeding, and the more you have to inject money, it's not fun. I think along the way, you have to look at your partners, and look at yourself and think down the road. Like, hey, if I look at this brand 5 years down the line, are we going to be in the same exact position, or are we going to be able to grow, right? And if we're not going to be able to grow, it's still a business at the end of the day. Then we need to cut the cord, and we need to all move forward. Like, hey, this is an opportunity where we can cut the cord now before it gets worse, and everyone can go their own way and work on something else.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely, I would say, one of the hardest things to do. I guess it also depends on your passion, right? How much passion do you have for that certain project? Because sometimes I guess it's worth bleeding if you really want it to work, and sometimes it could work at the end of it if you just keep going long enough. But I guess if even a percentage of you thinks maybe this is not right for me, you probably shouldn't keep bleeding on it, right? It's more about just like how hard are you willing to go and lose sleep, lose friends, lose, whatever it is on the path just to get to that goal. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I think just when you look at your partners and you gotta look in their face, and you're talking to them, you're talking direct to them, like, hey, how much more can you handle? How much more can you fight through this to get to that next level? Are you willing to do these things to get to the next level? And if they are, then I'm willing to fight with you. I'm willing to run all the way. I'm willing to run till the wheels fall off. But if you're not willing to bleed along with me, if you're not willing to sacrifice and make the changes necessarily in order to the business to win, then I'm out. Right? Because at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of the business, how's the business going to take care of you? So you got to, at the end of the day, regardless of all the drama, everything aside, if you cannot take care of the business, then it's not going to work out at the end of the day.
That's really interesting to know, because it doesn't just work in the F&B industry. It can go as small as, if you're working on just for a use case of most of our audience, I guess, if they're in the 3D world, you can have partnerships where you're working on a project together, and, if it's not working out, the same thing applies over there as well. That's why it's interesting to hear. Now, I just want to take it back a little bit to where you started, right? So you put out a story, I would say, last year, and you put it as a highlight in your Instagram. So if anybody wants to check it out, they can go and check that out. And it's basically you introducing yourself to your audience. And somewhere along there, you said you started in the real estate industry and then went into streetwear and then went into F&B. And your sort of existence in F&B was not something that you would have thought would be right for you in the beginning. It happened accidentally. And what's crazy is it's what you're freaking good at. And so many people are lost in life. And I myself, probably until 3 months ago, before this YouTube thing, we were like, we don't know exactly what we want to do. So many people might be in that location right now. What do you have to say to them? Because clearly you didn't know you're going to end up here, but this is definitely for you. So how would you recommend other people take their trajectory? Maybe you can touch on your own story of what helped you from real estate to streetwear to F&B, and how that can apply to people who don't know where they're supposed to go. How can they find what they're good at?
Yep. So I'll take it back a little further. When I was in college, I was in community college. I had no idea what I was doing. I did poorly when I was in high school. My high school, I was the worst. I got kicked out, for the worst grades possible in high school. And once you get kicked out, you don't get to choose the good colleges, right? You have to go through. Yeah. You have to go to a community college. You have no choice but to go to community college. If not, you don't go to school. So I went to community college. I took all my general ed courses. I took like a business class just because, and I took this course called career planning. And in this career planning, it's just like, hey, you're taking career planning because you don't know what you're going to do, and you're going to go in there and take all these surveys and fill out these things to determine what you're going to do in life, right? So I'm in this class, and in my head, I'm picturing, I'm going to be a music producer, I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to be a sports agent, right? That's what I'm thinking in my head. Yeah. And I'm taking these surveys, and the results come out. Office administrator. I was like, what? Janitorial work. I was like, fuck this. Like, no. And from there, it made me I got even more confused. I was like, okay, well, I have nothing. None of the results that are coming out are what I imagined that I should be in, but it's leading me in a completely different direction where I don't see myself. I was like, I don't see myself as a doctor. I don't see myself as a pharmacist. I'm Asian. I can't do any of those. I'm scared of blood. Like, I can't do that. So I was like, I gotta figure something out. But
And I'm guessing at the same time there was parental pressure on you.
oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I'm an
Asian heritage.
Asian
Yeah. So that doesn't make it easier. That doesn't make it
No.
easier either.
Yeah, my parents, they came from they came here from Vietnam, so I'm the firstborn born in America, so they expect me to do well, and I'm not doing well in school, and they're worried. Of course, they're worried. Luckily, I have my best friend who lived four houses down from me. He dropped out of school 6 months into college, and I'm like, what are you doing? What do you mean you're dropping out of school? You're crazy. Like, you can't do that. Like, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this thing in real estate. I met this really young guy who owns his own company, and he makes a lot of money, and he's driving a Range Rover. I was like, okay, whatever. He goes, yeah, I'm gonna go train under him, and I'm gonna go start my own company. Do you want to do it with me? I was like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, and I don't know what you're doing, but it's better than what I'm doing. So what the hell? I guess I want to work with my friends. We don't know anyone that's an entrepreneur at 18 years old. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go drop out of school and I'm gonna go take classes to become a real estate appraiser. And next thing you know, I'm in this course for a year and a half and learning about real estate, not really actually understanding what it is. And I get my license, and I'm the only one in my group that gets it. And I learned so much about how to work with my friends, right? I learned a lot about business professionalism. I had to quickly grow up because now in business, like you don't survive if you don't do good work.
Very true.
I had to make sure I showed up all the time. I had to make sure me and my friends were building a business, learning how to get an LLC, going to the opening bank accounts. Like, these are things you don't know, how marketing, branding, like all this stuff, like we had to learn. At 19, 20 years old, I started making a pretty good amount of money. You're making $300, $3,000 a day, like as our group, right? This is like a lot of money as kids.
Yeah.
And over time, I started realizing, I was like, cool, like I made money, but I didn't jump into this to make money in the first place. I was like, I just did this just to do this. And now I wasn't happy because I was like, I don't like this real estate thing. It's not for me. And I also had another friend at the same time. My other friend, Michael, he started a clothing brand.
Right.
And if you actually know me and my friends, like I grew up, if I had any extra dollar, I was buying sneakers, I was buying new Jordans, I was buying, I was refusing to eat school lunch so that I could save money to go buy new clothes. I won my best dress in high school. I was like my senior's best dress in high school. So I ended my buddy. He reached out to me. He's like, I need a model for my lookbook photo shoot. Can you do it? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna be a model. He goes, I'll give you free clothes. I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? I'm down.
Hell yeah, I'm down. Let's go.
So I ended up doing this photo shoot for him, and he just kept talking to me like, hey, do you guys have an office for your real estate thing? I'm like, no, we just work in my dad's garage. We make money, we're fine, we don't need it. He's like, you guys should get an office space. He goes, I need to get an office space. Do you guys want to get one together? So we ended up sharing an office space. This tiny room, maybe less than 200 square feet. He's in the room making his designs and clothing thing. And you just start seeing my attention span. Like, I'm like, what you're doing is way more fun than what I'm doing. You're not making any money, but I'd rather be doing that, right? So, I finally got enough courage to ask him, like, hey, I want to invest some money. Me and my partners want to invest in some money and be a part of the clothing brand with you. And he told me no. He's like, I was like, why? He goes, I don't think you're ready. And I'm like, what? Like, you don't think I'm ready? So I was upset, and I went back to my best friend, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's go start our own clothing brand then. We'll figure it. We're here. We're just watching whatever he does, and we'll pick it up and we'll start our own clothing brand.
This is the same real estate guy that you're talking about?
My best friend. Yeah, my best friend.
Okay, right.
I convinced him. I convinced my best friend, my real estate partner, to go out and start our own clothing brand, and thinking we knew what the hell we were doing. And as we got into it, we had no idea what the hell we were doing. But at the same time period, the real estate market was crashing. The U.S. was going through our recession in 2007 and 8. And that's the period that we launched a clothing line in the recession. Yeah.
Great timing.
Yeah, and I learned, starting a clothing brand. I learned a lot about branding, marketing, generating hype, how things look visually on camera, how to sell to stores, how to manage a lot of different young people at the same time, and that built a lot of the skills where it took me to where I am today.
That is one crazy journey. And one thing I guess that stood out the most to me is the concept of exposure and tasting things. So we had another guest on the podcast. His name is Bilawal. Shout out to him. He talked about how tasting things to find your passion is extremely important, because so many people hold back. They might see something interesting, but they never try it out because they might have this gigantic wall in front of them that says, oh, like, it's hard to open a new restaurant.
You could have said, I'm doing real estate, I'm making money. Why would I care about, another industry? Why
That's
should I go
one.
to
And the second thing is like always the concept of starting something like a clothing brand or a restaurant is always so hard. Like even for me right now, when I think of it, I'm like, dude, how, like all of the things you have to do to start a restaurant, or all of the things you have to do to start a clothing brand. Whereas your approach was like, hey, that looks cool, I want to give it a try. It's so important to have that mindset to be able to find your passion. Do you think that's the reason why? Because you were always super open to trying new things? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was a dozen other things that you didn't actually try. I want to know. I want to know how that went, because we know clearly the two things: the real estate, streetwear, and then F&B is something you jumped on and gave it a try.
Yeah, I guess a really good example of me realizing all of that is when I started training for this marathon. Right? Okay, so 5 weeks ago, I was working out maybe once barely, right? I was barely working out, and then I was at dinner with one of my friends, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm running. I have the half marathon run in 36 hours." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm running with my students, and some of them are gonna walk the whole thing." I'm like, "Walk the whole thing? I can walk. I think I can walk the whole thing." I'm like, "Am I able to still sign up?" He goes, "Yeah, I think so." So that night, I got home. I'm like, I'm gonna sign up for this marathon. 13 miles where I'm not a runner. I don't run. That's what I'm gonna sign up. I think I can do it. If anything, I'll just walk the whole thing. I'll just walk the rest of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna jump in and figure it out. So I did the run, literally died, right? I made it to the end, and literally crying, got my ego checked, saw all these people twice my age passing me up. But after that, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to train for the full marathon now, and I'm going to do it right. I'm going to train, and I'm going to properly start understanding the aspects of it. But I think a lot of my work, even with that, for example, when you take it back, I was always willing to jump in head first and be like, all right, I know what it's like now. Now I'm going to take the steps to do it properly, because I got a taste of it. Like you mentioned,
I love that. That's so it doesn't just happen to you in the world of business. It's everything else in life as well. The concept of just being willing to try new things. Farhad, I think we should talk about Steve Jobs, the typography. The concept, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. So we saw this online where Steve Jobs, before Apple, he did take a class of typography. And, to anybody at that time, if you were to look at Steve Jobs' life, you're like, how would that help you in creating Apple? But not knowing that indirectly that helped with the design and the artsy vibes of Apple compared to everything else, and why Apple is Apple today. So for you, how did the real estate industry and the streetwear industry help you in coming up into F&B and just killing it here? What are some of the things that you transferred from that to here?
Yeah, so the reason why the food side took off immediately was because I was applying this whole streetwear culture that I was in for the past 7 years. And I was the first person to apply it to food, right? I was applying hip hop culture, club culture, fashion aspects of it. The way things were on color, the way you're taking advantage of social media at that time. Like I was like an early pioneer of that, along with my friends. Just understanding storytelling early on already. People didn't understand how strong that was. And I spent a lot of my days in the clothing industry blogging. I had to figure out topics to write about, my whole lifestyle of clothing brand. That for 10 years or 7 years, I was writing every single day in this blog. So I learned how to become a writer over that, and I applied that into the food realm. And everyone was always so busy working in the kitchen designing dishes, but they forgot about selling the lifestyle, selling the story of your brand. And I think people got really in tune with that, and I think why I've been able to build this fan base over time.
That's crazy because you clearly know how to get people excited about food, about the concept that you design. But where does those idea comes from? Like, do you sit down and say, okay, this is a new concept. Someone told me that they need to open a coffee shop or something. Do you sit down and think about it? Like, or do you reference to somebody? How does these ideas come?
Where's the inspiration?
Yeah.
I pick up inspiration from everything. So whenever it's for example, I read for at least 12, 13 years, I rarely ate the same restaurant twice. I was always trying to eat at a new place or a new experience because whether it was a good or bad meal, I always wanted to learn something different. I always wanted to pick apart something different from every single experience. And my wife hated it. She's like, "Hey, why are you trying this new place? They don't have their things in order." I was willing to eat that bad meal to learn that brand new experience, and then go back to the same place I've already been to. So I was just always trying to pick apart little things everywhere I went. Like, hey, and also I live in Southern California. Disneyland is my backyard, right? So I'm a Disney fan. So I'm studying about brand experiences, rides, lighting, the way things are designed, storytelling along the rides, like all that. Like I'm in this realm of learning all these things. So like I'm literally living in an experience all the time. So I should be applying that to my life if I'm around this stuff all the time, right? I'm exposing myself all the time to it. So one way or another, I'm gonna pick up things whether I on the back of my mind or not. I'm gonna pick it up.
Super cool that you brought that up because we are the exact opposite and we suck at that because when we find a good location, we keep going back to it.
We as in Faraz, can I clear that? He goes to the same restaurant 200
Like,
times.
I like my food.
I'm begging him, bro, can we try another restaurant?
Dude, especially so when I used to be really fat when I was younger, and when I was fatter, if I found a place that I liked, I would just keep because I didn't want to risk not having like a good meal. So if I went to a place that had a bad experience, I would be like, you know what, this is horrible. This is ruined my day.
This is changing today. This is changing starting today.
We have to go and try and do it. They should do it Andy style. And
Andy style.
And you see it, by the way, guys. Again, if you follow Andy on Instagram, if you check out his stories, he's at a
Don't do it before you sleep, though. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah,
I did that.
Don't
I had
do it
a
before
horrible.
Yeah.
No. We see you even going out and trying new restaurants all the time, even now, because you want to get ideas. When you this is like completely unrelated to your journey, but like when you go to these new restaurants, do you actually have the whole plate or do you just like test it? Because sometimes you see on the same day, you go to like 2-3 different places. You just have like the whole plate and then go to the next one. And it's just like you try it, next place, try it, next place.
Yeah. So if you've gone on any trip with me, if you talk to my friends and everyone that's ever traveled with me, they know the rules now. They know hey, we're taking a bite, we're trying the best dish, and we're gonna pack it up and we're going to the next place. So we're gonna either you guys can eat it later at night, or we're gonna give it away to the less fortunate that around the area.
Oh, dude, we gotta travel with you, man. Like
he's coming down to Vancouver. I'm gonna go to a restaurant.
I don't want to travel with anybody else, honestly. Let's talk about your partnerships, not with your business partners, but I would say the licenses, I guess, that you get with the household names like SpongeBob, Hello Kitty, Rick and Morty, because anybody who has not, I guess, started a clothing brand or a restaurant or any sort of business, when the first thing that pops in your head, the moment you think about these names, is just like, it's impossible to work with these guys. They're so big.
Licenses.
Yeah, they're so big. You clearly didn't have that mindset again. You probably dived right into it. How the hell do you get to work with these big names, and how did it help you set up your brand for the popularity that it gained over the years?
Yeah, so I learned a lot about licensing during my clothing industry days. Nickelodeon actually reached out to me the first time, presenting me the Nickelodeon brands. And my dream, I'm a Ninja Turtles fan, and I really wanted to work with the Ninja Turtles at the time. So I designed this whole collection, this clothing collection for the Ninja Turtles collaboration. And at the last moment, which I still have images, I'm gonna show the images one day of the collection. They said, we actually signed with another brand, so we can't do the Ninja Turtles collaboration with you. And you guys made the whole thing.
You guys made the whole thing.
The whole collection was ready. It was ready to go produce. It was literally done, like ready to check. Like they got all the approvals until the last part, and then they cut us off. And I was so disappointed. But then they go, you know what? We still want to work with you guys, so we're gonna offer you SpongeBob. I'm like, okay, well, SpongeBob's cool. Let's just do it. Let's just work on a collection. And then that was my entry into licensing, and started doing a lot more collaborations along the way. And then when I got into food, when we first launched After's Ice Cream, I knew along the way there were going to be a lot of knockoffs. I already saw, like, within the first month, I already started seeing people knock off the brand. I'm like, okay, well, that's going to happen. That's fine. How do I separate myself from anyone else from being able to compete, right? I'm gonna end up working with these worldwide brands, and most people don't even know the first steps of how to even get into this licensing world to make it happen. But even if you did get into there, do you have the know-how to execute and do it right? And I don't think most people were going to be able to do that. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So I started, doing Hello Kitty collabs with afters, Rick and Morty, The Fast and the Furious, some streetwear brands, Crooks and Castles, The Hundreds, a lot of brands, like, people wouldn't be able to figure that out. And even we did a collaboration with the dance crew with Kinjas, right? Literally line wrapped around the building, helicopters flying around, wondering what's going on. But we're merging different lifestyles to get, like, my thing was like, hey, let's merge different lifestyles together. Let's get people curious. Let's build this fandom that's so strong that no one else is going to be able to replicate. So once we do these things, everyone's gonna be like, we can't even catch them anymore. They're way too far ahead now, and that was always, like, the goal for me.
Do you have any tip to anybody who maybe is, working on a clothing brand or working on maybe even food industry, maybe your own competitors? I don't know. I'm just, any tip. I guess it's not good to say your competitors for a tip, but generally speaking, do you have any tip that you can share as to how, as someone who's just, like, starting out, if they're dreaming of working with big brands like this, how can they get into that zone? Like, how can they prepare themselves to be able to work with big brands like that, or big names?
I think a lot of time presenting is a big thing, right? Okay, so for example, there's an event called the Licensing Expo, like, that's about once a year. And when I was first going to that show presenting, everyone was shutting the door on me. No, 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 no. But every year I kept collecting more contacts. I kept shaking hands. I kept coming back every single year. Look, now I finally got a collaboration, and here's my second, third, fourth, fifth. Next thing you know, everyone's saying yes to me, and now I have way more than I could even handle. And now I'm saying no, right? Now it's flipped around where I go, hey, I can't take this on. Maybe in like 2-3 years, come talk to me again. But I got a lot of stuff lined up already. But I think presenting a strong brand deck is important, right? Showcasing what you're able to do, and having clear goals on what you're trying to accomplish with it, because they want to see to see data. They want to see what you can pull off.
Dude, that is okay. First of all, thank you for that.
That was a selfish question from Faros, by the way. I know in your
question,
head you're thinking about.
I want us to be able to do that. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
My dream is to be able to work with some of the brands that I've been a big fan of. And it's just so hard. Sometimes you're like, what, should I just shoot them an email? Would they even read it? Because they're so big. And now knowing that, okay, I didn't even know there was a licensing expo, by the way. And I think that's like already a
First step.
Yeah, first step. And it's crazy because I guess an analogy for the younger crowd, and myself included, I'm single. It's like going, and if you're trying to pick up a girl, right, at a bar, you might get a failed attempt one time, but you shouldn't just stop there, right? You go and talk to as many girls that you like as possible over a long period of time, and then you might end up having a girlfriend, right? It's like you can't just try one time and say, oh, okay, like, girls don't like me, right? You just have to try, and eventually you find enough contacts. Different analogy, but I guess that kind of works, right? Different analogy, but it's pretty much the same thing. So you just try to bang on as many doors as possible, and until you find enough contacts. That's really important. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that.
Andy, I watched something that happened last year, and I was really surprised. We were on a call, and that you talked about starting a new restaurant, More Than Hungry. I think in the matter of weeks, the restaurant was ready. And it was crazy to me that, like, you came on a call. I was like, okay, I bought this Bored Ape, and now we are going to have this restaurant. I think it was 2-3 weeks down there. We got the signboard up. People were cooking burgers, and people were queuing up. How did you assemble the team to do things that fast and be able to execute your ideas? Because people are failing in executing ideas. They take years to do things, and you did it so fast.
I pulled a lot of favors, more than I would normally do. Right, I had to bring in the guys who've done this with me before. Everyone that I've worked with in the past that I knew could pull this off, I had to pull them in, because if I didn't pull them in, use those same exact guys, I wouldn't be able to pull it off. And I had to put a stamp and a timeline on it, because if I didn't put the date on it, we would have pushed it and dragged it on for weeks later, right? And I was like, we can't. We're playing against time with this project. We have to move now. And thankfully everything ended up working out at the last minute, right? And then even remember we discussed before, even getting to accept crypto, it didn't work until the morning of. Like even that was scary. We couldn't even announce it until we got it working. But everything happened for a reason, and I think applying pressure, applying pressure makes diamonds. So I had to we had to apply a lot of pressure to make that project happen. Like there was a lot of arguments, there was a lot of back and forth, everyone yelling, crying, a lot of like emotional parts of trying to get that place open. But you got everyone saw the power of that. Literally, we became the talk of the world, right? People that normally don't talk to me were reaching out to me, asking me about this thing, and I'm like, the heck, like you're reaching out to me? This is crazy. Yeah.
That was for me, it was mind blowing. So now, do you have, if you imagine if you want to do a new concept tomorrow, do you have a list? That this is my Avengers list. You are like
this is the reason
Samuel L. Jackson that you go and call off Avengers to do a wrestle. Like, do you have that?
Do you have your A team ready for like your next concert? Like you have that list. I know this guy can do this and that.
Yeah, I definitely have my go-to players that I know can pull things off. That I can trust. If I use them, my chances of success are higher working with them. Yeah.
Okay, so you've done so many different concepts. You've done the ice cream, you've done desserts, you've done burgers, you've done everything. You've done seafood. If you were to have like $100 million right now, or Mr. Beast comes and gives you $100 million to start a whole new concept, anything that you imagine, do you have something in your mind already of like what you want to go to next?
I'm always trying to do something I haven't done, right? There's no point for me to try to replicate something I've already done in the past because where's the challenge? Where's the fun in it? And I don't get excited. So I'm always looking for something a little different, whether it's the technology side of it, right? Besides just being the food of it, or the experience, the immersive experience side of it. Like I am totally into immersive experiences right now, right? I'm always about like touching, feeling, senses, creating moments that people will never forget. Like those are a lot of things that I apply to a lot of my work. And I think moving forward, there's a lot of things I haven't tried yet that I still want to try in a food beverage setting. Whether it is food or beverage or outside of food beverage, there's still things I want to try.
Wow. Since you're doing a lot of things, and I think this is not only applies to food and beverage, to any industry, your time management should be really on point. Like I can see you in DJ Khaled's house the day after you are flying to another city, the day after you are in this
SpaceX,
and you're doing so many things. Like you're attending expo. I can see you're always like into expos. You're always with celebrities. You're at restaurants trying things,
and at the same time you're also following your dream in art and in fashion. Like we see you do that as well, like combining all of this and making your businesses work at the same time. How
do you manage your time?
I'm on a tight schedule. Like if you schedule things out with me, it's like a week or probably a week and a half, 2 weeks now to try to lock me in. But I have time blocks. Like, hey, if you get me on a call, like you guys have been with me on calls. If it's more than like 30 minutes, I am checked out. Like, I got like, you guys got 15 minutes of my attention. And after that, my mind is already thinking about 20, 30 different things. So literally I try to get in there, get everything done, and then I'm on to the next thing. Like that's how I usually worked. And I think that's worked well for me in the last like 2, 3, 4 years now. So that I continue doing that, kind of continue working that schedule out.
I love that. One thing that you mentioned on your stories, the My Story, when you were talking about your life, you were showing all the things that you were succeeding in. And then you also had this one story talking about how it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. And you also had a lot of failures to get to where you are today. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is leading up to the question I have about, maybe your biggest challenge, your biggest failure that you learned from in your career. You mentioned something again. Was it an accident that happened in your store? Was it theft, or was it a car coming through? I don't know. I think I saw something in your stories something that changed the way you were working. I'm not sure if that was. Can you correct me if I'm wrong? Was that something that you posted about something that happened in one of your locations?
Yeah, the last straw was when a car ran into the store, and I was like,
okay. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, we were going through a lot of issues with this one concept that I wanted to do, literally in my hometown area. It was a Vietnamese concept. And I was trying to make sure this Vietnamese concept was going to be great because I'm Vietnamese. I have to do right for my community. And everything turned out wrong. Like my partners at that time were not having up to par quality. They're pushing out. They were rushing to open the store without making sure the product was solid. And then money started disappearing from the bank accounts.
Wow.
And then when I'd come in, the procedures would change, or the quality would continue to be different, or we would always be sold out of the best-selling item for some weird reason. I don't know what's going on.
That's horrible, man. If the quality of the food changes like from time to time, I hate that. The consistency in the quality is so important when you go to a place.
It is. Because you have expectations of when you enter this place, and you're like, why does it taste different every single time? And that's what's beginning to happen. And my friends were messaging me about it, and I was like, this is embarrassing. And once the car got through the store, I was like, this store is full on bad juju. We need to get the hell out right now. So let's figure out how to get rid of this project, and let's just part ways and everyone go their own ways, and that's it. So yeah.
Damn, that's a crazy story, man.
That's like a like a KO shot from a boxer.
That's
Like car coming to the store.
No, the
Like,
Mortal Kombat fatality shot.
finish it.
That place is like this, and then the car comes. It's like, okay, it's done. It's like
This is it. Yeah, like
over.
you're like there's no coming back from that. I'm like, guys, the world is sending us a message. Let's take that message and just
It's
move
like
on.
fucking
Yeah.
what else do you want? A car fucking came right
Flying
through the
into
store.
your
Like,
store.
what kind of message do you want, Andy? Stop this right now. It's really interesting just looking at all the things that you've done, and I'm definitely, I would say one of the main feelings that me and Farad have is just FOMO, constant FOMO, because we always see all the concepts that you guys have, and it's crazy because we want to try it out. And just out of curiosity, you guys, most of the works that you've done is in the US, but you do have Matte Black, I believe, in Korea, and Bored and Hungry in the Philippines, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Is that right? Is there
That is
any
correct.
other locations you guys have outside of
You
US?
have recently been going to UK, right? I think something has been happening over there. Was it? what was-
We did a pop up in London. We've been approached to do projects over there. We haven't pulled the trigger on anything permanent yet, but we did a pop up over there last year. We have projects in Taiwan. We have a chicken place in Taiwan, 2 locations over there right now. I also developed a project with you guys in Japan that we're hopefully we will see the light of day, hopefully sooner than
yeah.
later. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of things. There's a lot of different places, a lot of different countries. People are reaching out to us right now, and we're just making sure that we find the right partners in those countries to pull it off. I think it's very important that we have the partners who can execute and make sure they can bring the vision to life in the right way. And Korea and the Philippines have done a tremendous job for us right now. They do an amazing job on the way the store looks.
Because it's a different thing when you're working on even the same exact restaurant, same food in a different country. You have different cultures, you have different tastes, different flavors. How do you change and adapt the same concept restaurant? Do you have the same menu items, or no, you have to completely change the way you guys do it? Maybe even starting from the design of the store to the food to the service. Because even when you think about like McDonald's or Burger King, they have different menu items when you look at different countries, right?
Yeah, and in the Philippines, the quality of the product is also different. The quality of the meats and the buns are not quite the same as what we do. So we do the best we can to keep it as similar as possible. But we have a Filipino burger that we made that's specialized just for the Philippines. And we knew that it would to work for their flavor profile. And then Korea, we have a lot of drinks at Matte Black Coffee that we don't have in the US. A lot of things that our store is very fast casual in the US, where it's like quick take and go and you can throw away all the cups. But in Korea, we have a lot of sit down glass cups that you sit down, plateware that we normally don't do in the US. And they just pull off some exceptional stuff over there.
Is it, if you try that in the US, will it not work out well? I'm just curious, like to have the whole sit down concept and everything.
It'll require a lot more work and a lot more staff. And in the US, everything is ultra expensive right now.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
But
But that's interesting to know how it's different in every country and how you guys are pulling it off.
And the one thing that, since I think I'm curious, people would be curious to know what is your relationship with money? Are you a spender? Are you a saver? Like,
I'm not a crazy, like, I always, like, I like to buy weird stuff. But I'm not like, I'm not
Define
like
weird.
Like I'm not like, you know, my friends are the car guys. I'm not really a car guy. Like cars are cool, but it's not really my thing. And jewelry.
Dude, the same thing for us. Like when we were, sorry to cut you off, but when we were growing up as well, all of our friends had like car magazines. Me and Farah are like, are we the only ones who are not like, we don't mind sitting in a beautiful car, don't get me wrong.
Same.
With good money, you can buy the best cars, but we're not just like following it obsessively every day. I get that.
Yeah, and you know, the same thing with, you know, with jewelry and stuff. If I wear like jewelry and stuff, it's more like it's like I'm like I'm trying to be in a costume that day, right? Because I'm always like, hey, I feel like I want to have some rapper energy today. I want to put on like a chain. But normally I'm not flashy with the, you know, I'm not with the Rolex stuff. Like I'm trying to stay away from that stuff. Like that's not my thing. But I collect a lot of toys, nostalgic things. Like, you know, I collect Power Ranger figures. I collect like, you know, Ninja Turtle toys, Mickey Mouse, Disney stuff. I'm not that crazy of a spender. Not really. I'm pretty.
Then
Okay,
would
I
you
think.
say you save a lot of your money?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm a bit of both. I spend a lot on travel
On
experiences.
food, on food,
Yeah,
definitely.
I spend buttloads on food. Yeah, I spend a ton of money on food.
Those Jordans are not cheap. I see them. I see them. Those Jordans are not cheap.
Shoes. Like, if anything, if I do collect anything, it's shoes. I do buy a lot of shoes. I think shoes are, you know, just a part of my upbringing that I can't. That's one thing I haven't been able to step away from is sneakers for sure.
And rightfully so, man. It's definitely one of the more interesting games. Would you say that I guess it's more like 50-50. You're not a crazy spender, but you're not like a crazy saver as well at the same time. But would you say that, you know, I guess not spending on all the fancy shit has helped you be able to create newer businesses?
You know, I think it's being able to create tighter and leaner and I think more profitable businesses is because I've been able to be loose on certain things and really tight on other things, right? Because I built, you know, my clothing, my second business was started from the recession, right? So I learned a lot about this is how you work lean. This is how you make things from, you know, how are you supposed to get clothes on wrappers? Like, how are you supposed to make things happen? Like, I don't have money, so what are ways to make it happen? Okay, so I think I was always very savvy on figuring those things out, like making the most of my resources work out.
Okay, that was
Very
perfect.
interesting.
And another, I would say, cheat that you have is that you are very open on social media. I can see that you are sharing everything that you do. I think you're giving out everything for free. Of course, all your stories are there. Whatever you do, your failure is there, your success is there. How does that help you in your journey? Like, do people feel more connected to you when you do that? Like, do people know you when you go out?
Yeah, definitely. I get recognized when I go out, and when I go out, people do recognize me. I think it shows that I'm human, right? It shows that I make mistakes just like everybody else. I also came from, just like everyone else. I came from not much, right? I didn't have much when I was a kid, and I also good showing people that, hey, even though I came from where I was at, I could make magic happen by being myself, right? I could always make happen. I didn't have to be anybody else. I could, anything that I dreamed of or I wanted to make happen, like things happen, right? Look, I'm sitting in the same room as Drake eating my burger, right? I'm in DJ Khaled's backyard. Like, most people were like, how the heck do you make that happen? I'm like, well, I just believed in myself continuously, and if an opportunity came up, I was willing to chase towards it. I was willing to go for it. I'm an opportunist. I'm gonna go make it happen.
Behind closed doors in your own sort of business life, right? Would you say you pull off a godfather sort of role where you do favors for other people in a way that when you need the favors, because you just mentioned for Bored and Hungry, you have to pull in a lot of favors, right? Like, favors aren't free. Like, no one's just going to do things for you out of the blue. Do you give a lot of favors all the time so that when you need it, you can get them back? Is that how you do business?
No, I never do it for something to come back. Like, I think some people that 10 years later will help me along the way. Like, I've met like 10, 20 years ago are helping me now, or you know, helping me on something now that I didn't know that I needed, right? But I think just in how I felt maybe 10, 15 years ago when I was first starting out, I always felt like, hey, whenever I get to that position and I'm able to help others, I'm gonna go help others, because I wasn't given the same opportunity. I wasn't given the same chance. The guys that the people that I looked up to, admired at that time, were giving me the cold shoulder. They weren't, willing to help me out. And I was like, I don't want to. When I get there, I don't want to be that person. I want to be. I want to continue being myself. I want to help people just because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to help people out. That's part of my brand. Like, I'm supposed to be like your friendly neighbor that wants to just go and help you just because. Like, if you need me to go, help you move your stuff to the, move the couch down from 3 flights of stairs, I'm gonna go help you out because we have a friendly or a type of relationship.
I love that mindset. It's so good. I guess we're gonna sort of wrap it up with I want to talk about family. Are you okay with that?
I want to stay on that too.
One thing I want to mention. Let's go first. I guess one thing I want to talk about is your parents and how they. I guess when we were talking about your past, they were worried about you, right? And what you were doing, failing in school, and not being able to find your journey in the very beginning. I bet a lot of people watching who might be students, they're also worried about the same thing. Maybe they're not doing well in school. Maybe they don't like what they're doing in school. How do you go about dealing with that relationship with your parents? Because you're unsure of yourself at the time as well. Your parents are unsure. How can you deal with that whole relationship, making sure you can, make your parents proud, I guess, but you also don't know, because when you're young, you have no idea when you're going to be successful, right? It's a hard sort of thing to deal with. How do you deal with that? How did you deal with that, essentially?
I think just showing my parents I was always doing something, right? Whether it was successful or not, I wasn't just sitting on the couch watching TV or doing everything I was doing had some type of purpose. Like, hey, mom and dad, I am dropping out of school because I'm going to become a real estate appraiser, right? Like, I think appraising, I can if it doesn't work out, at that time I could still go back to school. But I didn't at first. When I first dropped out, I told them I was going to do both, right? I lied to them and I was going to do school and real estate at the same time. But I think as they saw along the way that the real estate thing was like, okay, it's kind of working out. It's not doing so bad for them. And then transferring to the clothing industry was scary because they're like, wait, we don't know any kids that do have a clothing brand. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Are you sure you're gonna get into this? I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Just don't worry about it. I'm doing something. It's better than me not doing anything. I can go back to school if anything, right? And then I got to food and I got to opening an ice cream store and they're like, oh my god. Are you sure the clothing thing?
You are the definite decision of bad decision. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. The clothing thing is doing okay now. Are you sure you want to jump and do ice cream? Like, I don't know anyone opening an ice cream store making money. And then after the ice cream thing, they're just like,
okay. You can touch anything you want. You can touch anything you want.
Do whatever you want. You're good. Yeah.
It's always like that, man. We always say, because anybody who ever asks advice, I used to be in esports and video games, and I guess the first time I was getting into it, my parents' reaction was like, video games, like money with video games, I don't think that's a thing. And I had to prove it to them because YouTubers were only starting to make money at the time. This is like the first, I think, 2012, like, all those Call of Duty gamers were coming about. And so I was showing that to them and I was like, look, it's real. They wouldn't believe it until I got my first paycheck, not from YouTube, but working at like an esports company back in Malaysia. And that's when they started believing in it. And so I guess you're absolutely right. You just have to find a way to prove to them that you're doing something. That's better than doing nothing. And I guess if you can make them understand that, that's always the best way to approach it.
Yeah.
And Andy, one more thing that now I want to talk about your family now. You are doing so many things. You're super busy, but we always see that you are a family guy. You're spending time with your wife, with your kids, going to Disneyland. I think a lot of people who are watching, of course, everybody is super busy. Everybody's trying to make their business work or working for someone that they do long hours. How do you become a great dad, a great entrepreneur, and a great husband at the same time?
That's always a work in progress, right? Always a work in progress. Balancing is not the easiest thing. I think right now, like my number one thing is being a great dad is number one, right? My business and stuff I think I'm at a point where it'll always be there. Work will always be there regardless of whether I like it or not. It's there. So my kids have I have my time with my kids during the day and I try to block everything else out unless it's something really crazy where I have to fly to Miami to hang out with Khaled, then yes, I will have to take off for that. But other than that, if I'm with my kids, like from 5 to 9, they get off and they're at home. I'm trying to hang out with them as much as I can until they fall asleep, and then I'm back on my computer doing work and knocking things out before I go to bed. And I think a lot of people they make a lot of their work drag on because they haven't figured out how to focus their time on how to get the accomplished. There's so much distractions in life, social media, all these things. Like when you got time to get to work, you're like, I just wasted 4 or 5 hours instead of like, hey, for this 1 hour, I'm gonna spend just completely focused on this. And if you can learn how to dial in on those things, you'll get so much more work, so much more things done.
Damn. So it's distractions that you're saying, like a lot of distractions that people might have that is actually wasting their time. It's so true. Sometimes me and Farhad, like once a week, actually, we have this planning day. We sit down, we're like, how can we improve our time efficiency? What did we spend time on, this past few days? And we realize there's small pockets of time that you don't even freaking realize. Maybe 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 15 here. And it adds up to 2 hours during that day where you could have spent that on completing an actual task that could have helped you then spend time with your family or do anything else that you really wanted to do. I genuinely believe that is true. One last question, Andy. For anybody who has met you for the first time right now, they want to know what the hell is going on with you in the future. Over the next few weeks, months, what can I expect? Is there anything that you're working on
I beg
right
if
now?
you're in US, go and try Trill Burgers.
If you're in the US or Korea
there.
for Matt Black or Taiwan you mentioned or Philippines, go and try one of his places. But I guess in those areas or maybe somewhere else that we're not aware of, is there anything that people should be looking forward to from you?
Yeah, I got some crazy stuff coming in the next few weeks at Comic-Con. Some special projects during Comic-Con week. If you guys are out here in San Diego, make sure you guys drop by during Comic-Con week. There's going to be something crazy that we're working on, and I'm super excited about it. And what else do I have in the next few weeks? I got a special collaboration project coming out next weekend. I can't reveal it yet, but it is. I think it's super dope. I think it's gonna be super cool. People are gonna love it. But yeah, the next 2 or 3 weeks, definitely those projects are gonna be crazy.
Fantastic. We're going to leave the link of your socials down in the description. So for anybody who wants to, again, lose their sanity, you're more than welcome to check out Andy's socials.
Instagram?
Yeah, but it's been a real pleasure talking to you. We learned, it's exactly what I expected. I was getting into this episode thinking I want to learn something outside of my specific industry, and I learned so much. And I hope for Farhad, I guess,
100%. That was, selfishly, I really wanted to have this conversation with Andy because we always talked about work, but we never sat down and you talk about his process.
And one more thing that's true, he's right. Every time we would get Andy on a call, it was like 20 minutes, and then we lose him. And then that was the first time we get him for an hour, baby. That's why this is the code.
The best.
If you want to talk to Andy, you should have a podcast, guys. That's the secret. That's the only way you can get him for an hour.
For sure.
But thank you so much, Andy. Once again, you're absolutely amazing. Can't wait to see you. We're not gonna reveal it because I don't know how it's gonna happen. But I guess at some point in the near future, probably in a month or so or 2 months, we might have a chance to meet Andy. And if we do, we're gonna make some videos so you guys can look forward to that. And until then, I guess I just want to say thank you for everybody watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode. Until then,
thanks
ciao.
everybody.